7th grade Connected Math midterm review number 4. Each day the cafeteria workers at the Burlington Township Middle School start out with 200 cartons of milk. They collected some data and made the following graph. Okay, so here's the graph they made. This is the cartons of milk and this is the time. So it shows at the beginning of the day that the cartons of milk they had was 200. As the day progressed, this is what happened at 1:30. They had that many cartons of milk. So you need to make a little estimate here. It's somewhere between 0 and 25. Now on your paper it's going to look a little different than what's on this video here. On your paper you can clearly see that yes, it's close to half, but it is definitely not exactly half, and it's definitely not above the halfway mark. So the highest number you should pick for this right here is 12. So I would say anything between 12 and 8 would be a good acceptable guess for this number. But the question is, what is the total number of cartons of milk sold? If they started with 200 and they ended with 12, how many cartons of milk did they sell? So I have two different math problems here. They started with 200, they ended with 12, so over the course of the day they sold 188. If you said 8, it would be 192. The reason I put these two down here is anything in between these two answers here would be acceptable. I'm saying it's 12 by looking at the actual packet, the review packet. It looks like 12 to me, but it's close enough. But if you said this was 13, your answer would be wrong. The next question says, how many cartons were sold between noon and 12:30? The one thing that you need to be careful with this right here is they're asking you noon to 12:30, so they're actually spanning two intervals, not just one. So at noon they had 125. At 12:30 they had 100 cartons of milk, so they must have sold 25. The next question says, during what 15-minute time interval was the most milk sold? And you want to give the starting and ending time of each 15-minute interval as blank to blank. This may not be on the test. You need to know that an interval goes from one time to the next. That's one interval. So you would say noon to 12:15. Alright, but the question's saying what time interval was the most milk sold? So you have to look up at the chart. Hopefully your eyes will take you to the two big slopes. It's either going to be this one or this one, so let's analyze it a little further. From 11:30 to 11:45, it was a big slope here, so you could see there was a big drop. They went from 200 to 150, so they sold 50 in this 15-minute interval. We don't have to worry about looking at that. Let's look at this one. They had 100 at 12:45, and they had 50 at 1 o'clock. So they must have sold 50 during both intervals. So it's okay to have two answers. Next question is the same type of question. During what 15-minute interval was the least amount of milk sold? Obviously, since we had two answers here, there could be more than one answer. So we want to look up. Now, if we looked at the biggest slope to see when the most were sold, we should probably look at the smallest slope. Well, the smallest slope would be not at all, right here. At noon, they had 125. At 12:15, they still had 125. At 12:30, they had 100. And at 12:45, they still had 100. And at 1:15 to 1:30, 1:15 they had, we'll take a guess, my guess is 12, and at 1:30 they still had 12. So we have three answers, noon to 12:15, and 12:30 to 12:45, and 1:15 to 1:30. I put the extra ands in here to really emphasize that there was three different answers here. And this is review, so I'm going very fast, and there's a lot of things that we've covered in more detail earlier. And every once in a while I'll remind you of some of the things. And one thing is, when they're asking for intervals, you have to go from one point to the very next one. You can't skip. You can't say like from 12 to 1:30. They want one interval, and this one happened to be a three-way tie. Should the cafeteria workers have connected the points? Why or why not? Alright, so we look back up here, and they do have the points connected, but the question is, should they have? Well, what's going on here? We have time. Time is continuous, and that's something you always want to look for. If it is continuous, you can connect the lines. However, you don't just check one variable. You have to check the other variable as well. This is cartons of milk left. If it can continuously be broken down, then you can connect the lines. So in other words, can you have a half a carton of milk sold? The answer is no. So you cannot connect the lines for this problem. Okay, that's all of problem number 4 for the 7th grade midterm review.